But to your point, all they're doing is they're going out there and they're being told information about their tests in their labs. They're not being treated. So I get what you're saying.
Yes, because I disagree. Okay. Here I got a couple examples right before the holidays. I don't think I mentioned on the show, but
let's talk about the article. Let's talk about Larry Benz posted an article, and I have it here. Let me see if I can.
Yeah,
there we go.
There you go.
Okay, so this was posted through LinkedIn, and I'm gonna kind of scroll around. Virtual health in physical therapy. Of course, Larry has a unique perspective. He's been around for a long time. What I'm trying to do is get us, there we go. That's the view I want. And some of his perspectives agree with you. Some of his perspectives agree with me. He talks about the landscape, the digital revolution. He talks about Hinge Health, which he outlined some of the challenges that they were facing and what they went through. They had a planned IPO. He talks about Sword. Some of the interesting things here that I wanted to highlight. He says here, quote, physical therapists are licensed to use hands-on skill, have empathy, compassion, and the ability to think critically. Where I'm going to kind of push back on that is I'm going to say that's true. That's not what insurance is paying me to do. Insurance is not paying me for empathy. Insurance is not paying me for compassion. Doesn't mean that I have to withhold it from my patients, but what it means is that if a patient has the ability and I have the desire, that is a value add. You want therapy to be fun? Hey, come on in. It's $300 an hour. You just want therapy, bare bones, no frills. It's paid for by insurance. Go sit on the bike for 10 minutes. Like that is reasonable. I mean, we've given away so much of our value for so long, and it's continued to erode the reimbursement to the point where we got to say, like, look, this is what we're being paid to do. You had a knee replacement. This is the post-surgical protocol. You want something different. You want something better. You want fun. You want to work with somebody who, is empathetic and compassionate. It's more money. If you want bare bones, effectively, I said this the other day, I don't want this to be perceived, negatively. It's basically food stamps for healthcare. It's really what it is. It is the social safety net that is ensuring everybody has coverage, which they do, and they're getting, the minimum standard of care, which is still the acceptable standard of care. Any thoughts on that?
I agree. In fact, maybe on another episode, I'm going to send you a screenshot of, I think it was a female physician. I think it was a Twitter post, but it said something along the lines, maybe a little more aggressively, but it was something around health insurance should be just for catastrophic issues like, car accidents, major trauma, fall out of a tree, I don't know, major sports injury, whatever. But, it's a whole other conversation, but similar to the theme of what Larry's talking about, where, I don't know, like it's been used for the health insurance for physical therapy coverage. It's been used for various reasons, whether it's like major complexity or like moderately or, simple complexity. And because of some of those reasons, again, we've talked about it before, whenever the care is subsidized by a third party payer, the more subsidy, typically, like the more utilization, and then that utilization that may or may not be actually medically necessary in terms of like truly what the insurance is looking to cover and pay for, and then what the therapist is actually documenting. Like, anyway, so we can go more into it.
Yeah. This comment from Jared, I've never heard of this. Flock Health, they're totally AIPT clinic in the UK. Have you ever heard of that?
I've never heard of them, no.
Sorry, Jared. If you have more information, share it. But yeah, it's interesting. Let's go back. Oh, I lost my view. There we go. We'll take this one. All right. So opportunities. Through the article, he goes into opportunities for 2025, hybrid model gaining traction. This would be a situation where we're incorporating in-person with virtual. I I think that's huge. I know you and I have talked about it. Your patient population doesn't necessarily want a combo like this, but I do think if you go back and you eliminate the thought that virtual or telehealth means video, email, text, like any kind of digital communication between you and your patient, I bet you're doing something like that. And if nothing else, if your patient asks you a question through text, you reply. That's telehealth. That's a virtual engagement that I think adds value and your patients appreciate. One of the ones that I think is an interesting model goes back to if I was a mobile therapist, I would go to the patient's home, I do an in-person session, but if I don't have the ability to commute and drive there all the time, I do one in person. While I'm there, I set them up with the digital. Doxy.me still has a free HIPAA compliant version that doesn't require your client to download an app. And so literally like tomorrow, I do a virtual 1-unit session. Hey, John, how's it going? Let me see you do the exercise that I showed you yesterday. I could, leverage that in multiple ways. I could be with the patient in the morning when they're waking up. I could literally do a wake-up call. And with the wake-up call, I could see how they're doing log roll, sit to, edge of bed stuff. I could join them in the evening when they tell me they have more pain in the evening, less pain in the morning. It opens so many doors for me. And even though I don't have the quote hands-on, I still have opportunities to deliver value. And for those who don't know, Daniel Hirsch and I talked, I published that video. Telehealth under Medicare has been extended to March 31st, 2025. And a lot of people, including Larry here, Daniel, a lot of people expect it to be extended even further. Any thoughts or feedback on a hybrid model of patient care?
So hybrid meaning some in person and some telehealth, check-in, and whether that the telehealth part also through a covered service, or those things out of pocket, or what do you like? What would be the definition here of hybrid?
I would say 2 conversations. First is, who are the therapists who want to do this combination? Second is, do they want to go through insurance or not? I would do either. I'm more insurance based. So yeah, my hybrid model would be I bill Medicare, I bill third-party payers that are covering it, and I leverage the ability to communicate digitally to the advantage of the patient, to the advantage of my business. You might do it all under cash.
Yeah. Every time that we talk about this, I always want to say like, hey, I live in New York City. I know I live in a bubble and it's different. But even then, like there's people here that don't pay out of pocket, right? And there's always going to be, again, we talked about it, the social safety net and the Medicaids and the Medicares. And there's, we want services to be there for folks that truly cannot afford it. But at the same time, like as soon as I lay that down as like, I preface it with like, that's me understanding the softer side of things. But at the same time, we've had people balk at paying out of pocket. And then, years ago, doing full-time visits, someone balks at the price. We agree, whatever, or they're like, hey, I'll try a visit and we'll go from there. Or I'll try a visit or two with you guys until this other agency or Fox Rehab or whatever is ready to take me on. Right. And so that's when I
Bridge visits.
a bridge visit. Right. So then I go into the person's home and, they're saying that they want to use their whatever, United Healthcare in-network or their Medicare or whatever the insurance payer is. And you go into the home and you see a whole bunch of new things that people have spent money on. And it's like Amazon boxes everywhere, Walmart boxes everywhere. Arguably, again, I'm not like the judge of how someone else should spend their money, but it's items that, don't help their health and wellness. It's like, I don't know, like a new TV, a new laptop, a new microwave, new running shoes. Like it's fascinating. It is so fascinating to see what people spend money on. And those are the things, those observations are the things that have allowed me to continue to push and just be so, confident and, firm with like what we do, why we charge out of pocket. And I think we're going to just continue because of multiple things, like whether it's in the news or just things like with healthcare and all that, I think it's going to continue to shift. Again, there's the social services, the safety net for folks that like truly can't afford it. There's going to be it's like it's a bell curve. The folks in the middle, this huge sea of people in the middle. I think they're going to continue to get smarter as consumers. That was something Will Boyd pointed out about trust and trust in their therapist and things like that. What are the factors of trust when consumers are shopping around for a new provider or a new whatever it is?
Yeah.
So it's just really fascinating. And you're right. Like a lot of this stuff, I do agree with Larry. I don't know. It's just it's something I think we're going to continue to talk about. Like there's always going to be some covered services. Then there's going to be, I think, more and more practices shifting away from. I've had someone said a chiropractor that I know, the insurance teat. So
it absolutely builds dependency. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Rafi said absolutely hybrid care equals access to clinicians, not necessarily heads up, synchronous encounters. Talking about access to clinicians, Daniel and I had a conversation in a second video that I'm going to publish where I said, like, look, I think if business owners are struggling to find therapists to do evaluations and initiate care, they have physical therapist assistants, but they don't have physical therapists. I think there's a case to be made, even in situations where the telehealth is not a covered service, maybe a Medicare Advantage plan that's no longer paying for it. I think it would be worth it to hire a remote therapist to do the evaluation, to comply with State Practice Act requirements, and initiate the plan of care, and then have the assistant who is on site, who is available, deliver the service. And this is a different business model where even if you're not getting paid the money for the eval CPT code, you're gonna at least get that patient started. There's no more wait lists. Like there's all these other things that it's opening the door for. If I have to pay $50 to get a plan of care started or $70 to get a plan of care started, and then I get access to all of that revenue and get the patient going and feeling better, 100%, no brainer. So there are models out there. Dana put out a ton of great information here. If we believe in our ability to help patients achieve better outcomes, prevent higher costs, unnecessary medical interventions, we should be pushing to be paid for outcomes. I love it. I'm a big outcome driven guy. I don't want to be paid for minutes. I don't want to be paid for CPT codes. If you want or believe payment will incentivize action, pay me for the action we want. You want patients to get better? Pay me to make a patient better. Don't pay me to spend 8 minutes watching the clock delivering therapeutic exercise.
I love the stuff that Dana puts out and talks about. I just don't think that's ever going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen. For example, you just said, okay, so you want an insurance company, Tony, to pay you for an outcome. Who's going to confirm that knee pain, that patellofemoral knee pain now is completely fixed, and that patient is no longer going to be in a certain risk pool for that insurance company, and that they only need 3 visits, and if they went to some other place that was fee for service, they would have been there for 12 or 15 visits or whatever, hypothetically. Those are the things, like, it's just, I don't think it's going to happen. Yes, bundled payments, if the insurance company says, okay, for this patient, this age, this risk pool, this moderate complexity knee pain, whatever, non-operative patellofemoral knee pain, we're going to give you a bundled dollar amount, and you can spread it out over 3 visits, 6 visits, 12 visits, whatever, right? I mean, if that were to happen tomorrow across the entire country, there would be significantly less utilization. There would be less visits. Practices would be like, oh, come in for an evaluation, well, independent home exercise program, and you're good. Have a nice life, right?
I don't think that. I think that's an extreme case. I don't think that's what would happen.
I do.
But I understand where you're coming from. Absolutely. And real quick, Dana, when I said it, I knew somebody was going to say that. Medicaid is the safety net. Medicare is not unless somebody is a Medicare QMB.
Yeah, just Medicaid.
And I get it. I would still say Medicare is still something of a safety net. We're forced to pay into it through our working career. It's not a choice that we're making. And it's, like Social Security, it's one of those things where I would still classify it as a safety net, as food stamps, as an entitlement. But it is what it is. It's the system we live in. It's what we're working with. If we jump back in here, I was a little surprised to see that Larry was talking about remote therapeutic monitoring, and basically, other tools that are out there. He was bullish on RTM, and here they're talking about private equity, and he was saying that a lot of companies are not taking private equity. They're trying to bootstrap. They're trying to do it on their own. Let me see if I can expand that a little bit. Which is going to, kind of limit growth. Basically, you're trying to put, you don't have the money to fund what you need. I find this to be the biggest barrier for therapists, me included. If you don't have funding, how do you innovate? How do you excel? How do you put money into hiring the best staff, into buying the best equipment? And this has been a conversation that I've been talking about a lot more lately, back to beating up on Medicare. If Medicare is paying me the same to use a 20-cent rubber band versus a $20,000 high-tech piece of equipment, I'm going to be incentivized to use the 20-cent rubber band. There is nothing in the Medicare budget that they're paying me that's going to allow me to purchase equipment and innovate and buy nicer supplies and nicer materials and better educate my staff and my clinicians and everything else. So I do think that declining reimbursement not only hurts the bottom line, the profitability, it also hurts the quality of the profession. What do you think about that?
I mean, you're putting this is a softball question for me, Tony. I mean, come on. Of course, I agree with that. If you have no margin where you can't do, new advertisement, new promotion, whether it's pay a marketing company, it's, buy a SoftWave, finance it, whatever it is, have the time like you have to record videos, put out content, do different things. Like, yeah, if you don't have margin for that, if you don't have like a business structure or a practice that allows for that, yeah, you're getting squeezed. I mean, we already know like owners if they're completely in network, they've been getting squeezed. And then, every year, regardless of the administrations, presidents, whatever, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be an increase of cost of living, and things are continually going to trend to be a little bit more expensive year over year. And so you still have this payment reimbursement, which is basically the same, if not, less with some cuts. Yeah, practices are getting squeezed, and there's no way around it. It's a challenging situation.
Scott, you are a wise man, but Scott says, a wise man once said, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. Totally true. Like, these are the things that drive me crazy. You're incentivizing me to watch the clock. You're incentivizing me to, provide units, not outcomes. That's really where the business is pushing us. And to your point, Dave, yeah, if you give me a bundle payment, you better believe there's going to be fewer visits that are being delivered. There's going to be fewer units that are being delivered. I would argue, though, I still think the outcomes wouldn't be that much worse. I think we're just overutilizing units because we're getting paid to sell units. No matter how much we don't want to do that, everything is pulling us toward 3 more minutes and you can bill a third unit. Diversify your units. If you do, for AMA guidelines, if you do 8 minutes, you can get 32 minutes, 3 units, all that kind of junk. None of us want to mess with it, but we also want to pay our mortgage and we want to put food on the table and we want to do these things. If we take a look, so challenges for 2025, back to the article, reimbursement obviously continues to decline. Provider skepticism. So after years of reduced reimbursement, increased administrative complexity, many providers are hesitant to adopt new opportunities. AI, anxiety, right? Is Sword going to replace us all?
No.
I did say, now I'm curious to get your perspective on this. I did say, and I do believe, the science behind what we do is a commodity, right? Like the science behind it, the true science. There's not a lot of it, but the little bit of true science we have behind what we do, it is a commodity. I could get it for free. I could get it from AI. That is the stuff that Sword and these other companies, I think, are delivering, and it has virtually no value. There hasn't been a day in my physical therapy clinic that I haven't had a patient mention Sword or Hinge. They're still in my physical therapy clinic,
Exactly.
even though they have access to those resources.
Why?
Because they're here for the empathy, they're here for the touch, they're here for the stuff that technically the insurance isn't paying for, but we are using.
The experience.
Yeah.
The human. Okay. Now it sounds like you're agreeing with me with all this.
There's a middle ground. We'll figure it out.
Okay, Ann and I watched a video last night because on our smart TV we watch YouTube, which is hilarious. It's a whole different world now. But we watched a YouTube clip. Barnes and Noble used to be almost dead because of Amazon and the Kindle and all that, and they opened, I think, recently, or they said in 2024 or something. They opened 61 new stores, and every Barnes and Noble store is massive. It's huge. They redesigned the layouts in a lot of stores. They allowed the managers and the folks that run those stores to actually have like a unique design. So like they're like, hey, in Brooklyn or Upper West Side Manhattan or whatever, they're like, hey, the local clientele, the locals here, and they're like, hey, we'll give you tips on how to turn the table this way and make it angled this way so the flow, and it puts a person in a different experience. Long story short, they hired some executive that helped turn around other bookstores in the UK and other book chains over the years. So they hired this guy, I forget the guy's name. Barnes & Noble is back, and he was talking about, he said, Barnes & Noble, we got rid of the boring books. We got rid of the medical books and the other books that, you can just buy on Amazon. And I think he was kind of saying it's like those books are like transactional. He says, you can buy this book on Amazon, this nonfiction book. You can buy this nonfiction book on Amazon, and then you can also walk into this Barnes & Noble store and buy this same exact paperback nonfiction book at this Barnes & Noble location. And he was talking about the experience exactly how you're saying about the patient who knows they have free access to Sword Health or Hinge Health or whatever. They still drive, they get in their car, they put clothes on, they get in their car, they drive to your location, they park, they got to walk in, they got to check in, they got to pay a copay typically because of the human experience. And the CEO or then this executive at Barnes & Noble was talking about how someone can buy the same book on Amazon that they can buy in person, and they will buy the book in person after having an experience. Maybe they bump into another customer, and the customer is like, hey, like, you got that book? Like, have you read this other book by Tom Clancy or whatever? I liked it for this reason, whatever. And the customer leaves with the physical book in their hand, in their bag, whatever. They're leaving the store, and the Barnes & Noble executive is saying it's the same exact book, but it's a better book.
Yeah. And
I was like, whoa. As soon as I saw it last night, I'm like, somehow I need to bring this up with Tony, and you just put it on a tee for me, because now I feel like I know you said there was a middle ground, but it seems like for whatever reason, you're sipping my Kool-Aid a little bit more. You're going away from the timed units and insurance and all that, and maybe you're going to some middle ground, and so maybe we can meet in the middle. I don't know.
No, I agree. I love the Barnes & Noble story. I researched Barnes & Noble a couple of years ago. I knew about the new CEO that they brought in. An interesting fact about Barnes & Noble was the reason they didn't go out of business when Books A Million and all the other bookstores went out of business. They actually owned their real estate. And so their real estate portfolio was appreciating. That was keeping them around during the Amazon explosion and all the book sales going online. What I'm looking at for 2025, kind of what you're alluding to, is, okay, the science is a commodity. The exercises, the reps, the stuff like that, the treatment protocol, all of that stuff can be free online. Like, there's no value in that anymore. And that's why Medicare is not paying us more. That's why our reimbursement isn't going up, because we should be able to, and this has been my argument for a decade, when I was a new grad, it was more expensive for me to treat a patient after a rotator cuff repair than it is today. Because today I've got 20 years of experience. I've got a lot more knowledge. I can see things that are going to happen before they happen. Why is it costing the same to rehab a rotator cuff repair. It should not. We should have compressed all of those prices down to virtually zero. What I'm doing, the Barnes & Noble experience versus the Amazon. Amazon delivers the book tomorrow. Barnes & Noble, you have the smells, you have the sights, you have the sounds, you have the chairs, you have all of that. That's the newbie. That's the soft wave. That's the rehab reactive step trainer. Like, that is the equipment that I'm investing in right now to deliver that premium experience. Jerry Durham talks about Starbucks creating the third space. It's not home. It's not the office. It's a third space. And I always thought about that. I'm like, I can get a great cup of coffee on the corner. Why am I going to Starbucks for an average cup of coffee? Because of the experience, because of the design. That is where the profitability is for us moving forward.
Yes, and I was just about to swing it back to profitability because Alex Hormozy said something like Starbucks, the lifetime value. I think I mentioned on the show before, but do you remember approximately the dollar amount of the lifetime value of a Starbucks customer to Starbucks?
No.
So how much one customer on average will pay over basically like from when they started going to Starbucks until today? It's like $14,000.
I would have said $600. Okay.
at like, $4 to $6 at a time, which is wild. And that's because they have scale. They have so many locations and you can stop in any place. And, usually it's like a consistent, you say, grande, this, that, whatever. And it's usually, pretty consistent because they got some of the, fast food type of components in there for efficiency and consistency and all that. But yes, profitability. So again, it swings right back to it. I was just about to say it. And if the practices don't have this in physical therapy or healthcare or whatever, you can't have that type of an experience. That would be the Barnes & Noble example. Like, why would someone skip Hinge Health and Sword Health that's free? They can do it on their computer, assuming that they have a little technical skills. Why would they come to your location? And then, even in Ohio, there's, I think, is Dennis, is Cameron Dennis, is he out of pocket? Like, there's other people that are out of pocket in your area. Right. So it's like, there are also nearby residents that you said on a previous episode recently that that there's people that would pay out of pocket for your type of services, your type of an experience. So it's just fascinating to break down and talk about.
All right, we're coming down to the last little bit here. Predictions. Medicare coverage. So they're saying, big news, Medicare will probably, I'm putting my words in, probably expand coverage of virtual physical therapy. We've got remote therapeutic monitoring again. I think it's going to continue to grow. I think it's going to continue to be more widely accepted. I just interviewed Stephen Cohen again from Sarah Health. I haven't made that interview public yet, but we were talking about finding those new ways to roll out relationship building. And so Sarah Health just released an option where I have a welcome video. So when I add somebody to the Sarah Health platform, the first text that goes to their cell phone is a link to YouTube with my welcome video. Now, that was something I used to do years ago. It kind of fell off the radar, but they're bringing it back. And then he said, patient perspective, patients will increasingly be warming up to virtual PT. I am still shocked, even with my biases, at how many patients see no issue. They're totally used to, they'll literally be in my clinic and they're like, oh, I got to take this call. It's my endocrinologist who's doing a virtual consult. And they'll literally go out the door and jump on a video call with any kind of MD specialist. I think we are more resistant to that change than the patient is resistant to that change. But to your point, all they're doing is they're going out there and they're being told information about their tests and their labs. They're not being treated. So I get what you're saying.
Yes, because I disagree. Okay, here I got a couple examples right before the holidays. I don't think I mentioned on the show, but very smart client of mine. He's like one of the two clients that I'm treating right now. He's an intern. He's an attorney for one of the gigantic like the big four. Like the big four accounting firms. Very intelligent, and we discussed telehealth briefly. physical therapy telehealth. And I don't want to say too much, but he's got like a neuro component and he's got like a couple orthopedic components. And we talked about telehealth for a second, and he goes, "How could you do that?" And that's someone who is very intelligent. I think he went to Columbia University, and I'm not saying like if you're intelligent, like you, I don't know, like, but that's a consumer who is very savvy. They make a lot of purchase decisions, with their spouse. They understand. They have a certain perspective of the world. And how can a physical therapist like me, how can I try to sell something when I believe a lot of my target population is going to say in their head, like, how could you do, because some of the therapy visits that I've done with him is hands-on manual therapy, or it's contract relax, or it's tactile cues, and it's things where I'm guarding him if we're doing balance or whatever. And so he's like, how could you do that? Like, how is that even possible? So it's like, how can a physical therapist pitch or sell a a covered service of telehealth or out of pocket, either way? But even when it's covered, it's like a lot of the population has a predisposition. Like, how could physical therapy be done over a video visit? And you're going to just, tell me what exercise to do in a chair, like, and how can that be worth my time?
Massage robots. I remember Rob Vining always used to share a GIF or something of a robot with lasers coming out of his eyes. This is going to be my go-to massage robots. No, you're right. Like, and again, you know what you sell, you know who you sell it to, you know what they're looking for. That's the most important part in all of this. Barnes and Noble is not going to put Amazon out of business. We can all agree on that. Amazon will continue to deliver books the same day or the next day. Barnes and Noble will continue to deliver the experience of buying a book. Barnes and Noble slows down the process. Amazon speeds up the process. Like, there are people who want both of those scenarios separately. And the beautiful part is we have the opportunity to deliver. Real quick, moving away from all of this, this is the craziest thing that keeps coming up in my news feed. And we'll wrap up with this. Gary Vaynerchuk, which I'm a huge fan. I've been following him for a decade. He keeps pushing TikTok live selling. Have you seen any of this or looked at it at all?
I didn't know he was talking about it specifically about TikTok. I have seen that he's been posting a lot about the future, like this year, having a lot more of this, basically like a live, home shopping network kind of thing. Gary is super successful. He's very successful. He's very motivated. But at the same time, 4, 5, 6 years ago, he was saying the same thing about Amazon Alexa. And I told you guys on the show, he was completely wrong about Alexa. He said Alexa was going to replace Google search, and people were going to be, saying to Alexa, Alexa, what's the best physical therapist near me? What's the best barbershop near me? How much do they charge? What's their soonest availability? Alexa, find me a locksmith, whatever it is, a roofer, whatever. And literally no one uses Alexa for any type of search where you're trying to get something, you're trying to hire a professional, or you're trying to problem solve something in the real world. So I'm not that interested in it, because I've seen the effectiveness of QVC and the Home Shopping Network and some of those. And unfortunately, my mom is a big shopper of those platforms. And they use all the marketing tactics, the scarcity, we got 2 seconds left, we got 5 minutes left, we had 40 units remaining, now we only have 3 units remaining. Get them while they're, get it while it lasts. And I'm sure there's like a stockpile in the factory that has like, thousands of units available. So yeah, I've seen it. I don't understand, I guess, fully, like, what's in it for him. Why is he pushing it? Like, is he going to have some platform that comes out that hosts a lot of this stuff? I don't know. Or it's just his his interest in like selling, because he's done all the yard sale stuff where he films himself. He goes to someone's yard sale in New Jersey and he tries to haggle with them, and they say $10, and he's like, how about 2 for $5 or whatever, like, and he's like a multimillionaire and he's like haggling for pennies and dollars. He does that for content. I don't know, maybe he's just doing this for content.
Yeah, I don't know either. And I agree. It's a weird, awkward, uncomfortable experience to like watch some of these. And it is a completely different culture than I think anything that I'm used to, probably you're used to. But I was thinking about this and I'm like, how do we adapt something like this? I watched a couple of videos that talked about how TikTok is really pushing these live interactions, live streams. What's interesting about TikTok Live is they don't archive that content. Where here we're live, this is live right now, and YouTube will keep this available in perpetuity. TikTok doesn't do that. So I could see, and I've seen ridiculous numbers from TikTok shop affiliates and stuff like that. Like these people are making tens of thousands of dollars a month doing these live selling events. Amazon has it too. It's just not as popular on Amazon. But where I'm going with this, I'm like, my dream has always been to be able to stream live from my physical therapy clinic during patient engagements, so that obviously I have consent, it's informed consent, HIPAA compliant releases, all of that stuff in place. But to have a real patient who's going through a real recovery process, post-surgical knee replacement, and stream it live, I've done it with PT students, and I think it's a phenomenal experience. So to be able to do that with the general population, I think there's a huge advantage to that. And again, these could be people in other countries that will never have access. They will never be my patient. I'm not getting paid for any of this. It does get monetized with ad revenue, I'm sure. But the idea is it's a way to expand access to care, to share new ideas, to share different perspectives about a condition that you and I probably treat very differently, but not right or wrong, just different. And I think there's value in that. One more form of virtual PT. All right, let's wrap it up. Parting shot, what's on your mind?
Let's see, with the Larry stuff, with the Larry Benz predictions, AI anxiety. Hey, by the way, we didn't even cover that. There's not going to be much change in the physical therapy world with AI. We talked about this. So I don't understand, like, how is that causing anxiety? It's going to help you with documentation, hopefully. It's going to help you with practice management and running reports, hopefully, with Prediction Health or some other platforms or whatever. Maybe Sarah Health is going to add some AI and, just automatically take your text and your exchanges with patients and automatically sync to your medical record and bill those claims and those units or whatever. But I really want to double click on my parting shot. I really want to double click on what you were talking about around the value base and the experience component of what we offer, and less so the timed units and, I got to do something for 3 more minutes so that I can, bill a 4th unit or whatever. I think that's the future, or it's the present and the future of physical therapy, which is the experience, which is the in-person. Maybe it's some hybrid stuff. Maybe it's some component of telehealth. You have an in-person experience and an in-person relationship with Tony or whoever your physical therapist is. And in between, maybe it's text messages, emails, video chats, phone calls, whatever it is, and tying those together. I don't see how that's ever going to change. Just like that robot that you showed, that will never replace massage therapists. There's always going to be people that pay to go to a massage therapist. That robot will never replace. And the people that want the robot because it's a $20 massage or whatever, those are different consumers. Those are the folks that typically will say, do you take my insurance? And then there's other folks in the world that are going to pay out of pocket for that massage or the physical therapy or whatever. So those are the people that we target with our service.
Awesome. My parting shot is simple. Guys, it's a new year. Go support the Dave Kittle Show. Find him on YouTube, subscribe, follow the podcast, go to PT Pintcast, hit all of the socials. Your support is what keeps us going. Like Dave and I take time out of our day. I'm in the clinic. I've got patients waiting on me. We want to share these ideas to help everyone. The best way to support us is go out and subscribe.
Hey, it's Dave Kittle. Are you a healthcare business owner or physical therapy practice owner who is looking to figure out your succession plan or exit strategy? We might be able to help. And in fact, we may be interested in acquiring your practice. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Shoot me an email at dave@kittle.com. conciergepainrelief.com. That's DAVE at CONCIERGE, painrelief.com. Or you can call me at any time, 646-781-8884.